Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Unpaid Interns. It is Friday, August 14th. Austin Render joined by Connor Hines here for our Friday episode. We will have Big Ten Network's very own Dean Linke joining us here at the top of the hour. We are really excited to get to talk to Dean. We always love getting to catch up with Mr. Linke and what he has to say about soccer and about sports. And obviously, there's a lot to talk about right now with the lack of fall sports and what might happen with that. And look at that, he's joining us already here, joining us a little early. But Hines, before we do get to Dean, I want to talk a little bit about the NCAA, what's going on. Obviously, football's a no-go in the Big Ten. It still seems to be a go in the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12, but there's a lot of people clamoring that that shouldn't be the case. What do you think about the dysfunctional reality of the NCAA right now?
Yeah, we'll have to see. But, to your point, it's not so much the dysfunctional nature of the NCAA. It's the dysfunctionality is coming from the fact that the NCAA doesn't have the same grasp on the sport of college football as it does over every other Division I sport. And we're seeing that come to fruition, albeit in the middle of a pandemic. So we'll have to see. As we've said so often this summer, only time will tell with these sort of things. Seems like the Big 12 ACC is going to be the, swing vote of sorts, but we'll see. I mean, it's very interesting, even considering watching college football happen still, minus a couple Power 5 conferences. So we'll have to see. I definitely don't think it's out of the question, but because the NCAA doesn't have the same hold over college football as it does the College Football National Championship, the only reason why that has not technically been canceled yet is because that's the only Division I, college athletic championship that is not directly, governed by the NCAA. The NCAA obviously canceling all other fall championships. So only time will tell. It's going to be a very interesting next few weeks here to see how the political conversations play out, between the commissioners and coaches. But more than anything else, it's the university presidents and chancellors who are going to have the final say here, as we saw with the Big Ten, as we saw with the Pac-12. Let's gear up, baby. Hopefully we have college football of some kind, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, let's be honest. Pac-12 wasn't going to have a national title contender. You never know, but
Right.
they haven't the past couple of years. Hey, if those three conferences play, you're looking at like everyone who's been in the playoff, might mean minus Ohio State, for the last 6 years. Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Oklahoma. I mean, that's what you're looking at right there. And maybe an Auburn or a Florida State or something. Or Notre Dame. So you're kind of looking at who would normally be in the playoffs. So if they could make it work, there'd still be some high-level college football to play. Basketball-wise, Mark Emmert said yesterday, if they have to bubble, they can do it. Do you believe him?
College basketball.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last time I was on this show with you, we talked about it. A team of writers from The Athletic came out with a proposal of, 30 or 40 something different regionalized bubbles. In the dream world that we're living in, nothing's out of the question. I absolutely think this is something that we could see in the future. And I'm sure, we'll get Mr. Linke's thoughts on this as well. But the bubble format with something like Major League Soccer has been largely successful. We know how successful the bubble format has been, regardless of setting, sport, etc. If we're still looking at the same conversation situation in terms of where we are at with the pandemic a few months from now, when we start to begin talking about college basketball, I definitely think it's going to be something they can, or certainly should, consider by regionalizing the sport.
Seth Davis is one of those writers for The Athletic, and he tweeted out this morning, or maybe it was this afternoon. He said, what if we just take these tournaments in the Bahamas, the Atlantis tournament, the Maui Invitational, we bring a mainland and make them a bubble and give them 3 weeks and let everybody kind of do a round robin.
Isn't that Isn't that so, Indiana? The 1 year this happens,
Yeah,
the
of course,
Hoosiers aren't
Indiana's
going to
supposed to go
Maui.
to Maui.
Right.
But, and he said the big thing is we got to start thinking about this now. I said this on Wednesday's show with Tamar. College basketball has the gift of time. I think Dana O'Neill tweeted this out. Like, look, they have time and they better use it. They better not sit around and wait. And they better come up with a plan now. Because I think there are ways they can make it work. The NBA, the MLS, the NHL, the WNBA, they're all showing you, look, this can work.
Sure.
Can they make it work is the question. And a lot of that is going to lie with the NCAA. Can they come up with something that the conferences are going to agree upon and that can make it work? But obviously football and basketball are the hot topic, but that doesn't discount all the other sports. We want to bring in Dean Linke from Big Ten Network. He's a huge soccer guy, big play-by-play broadcaster for Big Ten Network. We love having Dean on the show. We're going to talk all things soccer, all things sports here today. But first, Dean, how are you doing?
Doing great. Great to be with you guys always.
Always good to have you on. Let's talk the big news. I mean, there's no fall sports, and it stinks. We heard it on Tuesday when everything went down. I was on the golf course both then and when the March Madness turned down, which I think means that I'm playing too much golf. But what were your initial reactions to hearing that everything is gone? We'll get into specifics later, but your initial reaction.
Yeah, my pragmatic reaction is, safety first. Obviously, as a broadcaster who loves the Big Ten Network, I've been there since day one. It's devastating, right? But it's bigger than me, and people have it much worse than me. So it's all about the safety of the athletes and coaches, and they're smarter people than me making those decisions. And hopefully we can get through this. Hopefully we can, do a spring season, which might start, particularly as it relates to soccer, might start the idea of that 21st century model. I think, that Sasho and Todd Yeagley right there in Bloomington have been instrumental behind. So, trying to get a silver lining out of all of it, but know again that people smarter than, no offense, guys, all three of us are making these decisions.
Thank goodness other people are making these decisions. I maybe Dean could get involved, but I don't think Connor and I should be involved in any of those.
No.
Well, you mentioned the 21st century model. It's something that we've heard Todd Yeagley talk about going fall to spring. I think we talked about this the last time you were on. I mean, is that something that could happen? What are the logistics that might need to fall in place for it to happen in 2021? And then could it stick?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything happens in 2021, it will be just taking the fall season and put it in the spring, but it'll give them a good idea of how they manage the stadiums, how they work with the spring sports, how they all interface together. So what a great opportunity, like I said, to take advantage of a terrible situation and at least get a glimmer of an idea of what would happen if, in fact, they played some games in the fall, some games in the spring, and maybe push it forward for the following year. That's probably your best case scenario, and one that I think all of the soccer coaches at the D1 level are looking forward to.
Man, I mean, I know you're going to miss it, Dean. I know the other side of Bill Armstrong Stadium, which used to be just bleachers, is now a full build out. That was going to be ready for this season. We're all going to miss Big Ten soccer, but obviously, as you kind of alluded to there might be some lasting repercussions. I don't know if this was a where were you when this news broke kind of thing, because we've been expecting this for some time now. We've been having these conversations about, what the conferences are going to do with the pandemic if college sports are a possibility. But I mean, how long has Big Ten Network been having these conversations about what this fall now might look like for people like you? I mean, I assume it's going to be a little bit more of the same sort of, specials, fun features that you've been doing these past few months with BTN.
Yeah, so I do feel like I had a pretty good seat as far as what was going on. I think the Big Ten Network, as early as, even this week, still thought that perhaps they were going to play some fall sports, and we were kind of pushing forward with that. We were doing previews that I want to get to with all 9 men's soccer coaches with distinguished alumni, all 14 women's coaches. And the idea for that was to preview what was coming up in the fall. Now it becomes perhaps stuff that they can use in the fall, since there'll be no fall sports. So hopefully you'll be able to see some good interviews. I think the over under is 10, but we had the Godfather on one of them. He's right here with me. So that's one Godfather. I just said it again. So that's two. So we're at 3 Godfathers, but Godfather.
Did you bet the over? Are you rigging the system here?
At 3. I'm just an innocent bystander. It just comes organically, so, but I love the guy. What can I say? Guilty as charged. But anyway, to answer your question, Connor, I was right in the middle of it all. And Sue Marriott, who's just been incredible doing stuff, even a month ago, we did a thing with Megan Taylor, who won the Tewaaraton for Maryland field hockey, or Maryland lacrosse, sorry. We also did a thing with Maryland field hockey as well with Missy Maharg that'll be coming out a little bit later. And we did the thing with Andrew Gutman that you know about as well. And they've been doing stuff with volleyball, and football and basketball. So to play a little role in that's been really exciting. I love the Big Ten Network. I love all the Big Ten schools. So obviously I'm heartbroken because, the fall is a busy time, but, there's a reason they're doing this. And again, for the safety. So kind of had to roll with it. But yeah, Connor, I felt like I know where I was because every day I was doing these interviews and
Sure.
In fact, at one point, a lot of the coaches are like, hey, are we still doing this? And Sue spoke up and said, yeah, we're definitely doing it. We're going to do it COVID free. And then when we're done, we'll ask questions about what COVID means. So these Big 10 and 10, when they break, you guys are going to love them. I'll just go ahead and tell you. I mean, we got Todd Yeagley and this guy
You're
named
stealing my next question, Dean. You're stealing my next question.
All right, well, you asked the question, then I answered it.
Well, you've got it. I mean, you've got every coach and a celebrity guest with them. You've already spoiled that the Godfather is Todd Yeagley's guest.
Wait, if you say it, does it count as 5 or no?
You gotta consult with the odds makers on that one.
All right.
What's it going to look like, or what did it look like for you? And without giving too much away, what's it going to look like for us when it comes out?
Yeah, I want to give it all away because I want you guys to be pumped for it. So, basically, and I got to give Chris Monroe, of course, a fellow Indiana guy, credit because he called me and was like, hey, let's do something. I've got this idea of Big 10 and 10 and, I've got the United Soccer Coaches podcast as kind of a backdrop. So I'm like, all right, well, at the very least, we can air it on United Soccer Coaches podcast, but let's go ahead and set it up and then send it to Sue and see if she gets excited about it. And sure enough, she did. And here's why. So Indiana, Todd Yeagley and the Godfather, I think that's 5 for me. Sasho Soroski and Marisa Dew. That's an Olympian, World Cup, #1 pick in the MLS draft, played for the Rangers, 2005 national champ, now on Fox Sports. That interview was awesome. Shaka Daly with the babyface assassin, Robbie Mertz, who's crushing it for Pittsburgh. And I think crushing it so much that don't be surprised if you see him next year in MLS. And by the way, Robbie Mertz and Shaka are on my United Soccer Coaches podcast this week. Damon Renzi with DeJuan Jones, who's starting for Bruce Arena at right back, did great in the bubble. He's legit from Michigan State. Tim Lenahan, Tyler Miller, who won more games in goal than any MLS goalkeeper a year ago, now at Minnesota. Brian Mazanoff, another Hoosier who had Matt Lampson, who was a Big Ten goalkeeper of the year. He's with Columbus Crew. He recovered from lymphoma. I mean, amazing story. Then we had Jeff Cook with Aaron Malloy. You guys remember Aaron Malloy. You called the games. That guy was a beast. Big Ten midfielder of the year. Jim McKeldry with a guy named Peter Vermees. Are you kidding me? Great player at Rutgers, 1990 World Cup, the head coach for Sporting KC. And then John Trask with Chris Mueller, who's killing it. He got Orlando in the final of the MLS Cup is back. That's just for the men. The women are crazy as well. I'll just tell you for Indiana, Erwin Van Bennekom, who I knew well because he coached at Duke and I live in Chapel Hill. He's going to do great things at Indiana, by the way. In fact, I also showed The Godfather with Erwin and said someday it's going to be you as well. But we had Kelly Lawrence. Now, you guys won't know Kelly Lawrence because you weren't born yet. But when the Big Ten Network launched in 2007, Kelly Lawrence was a star for Indiana. I loved her. She's one of those that you're drawn to, even as a center back. She was magnificent, and that's who we had on. And the list is incredible. I mean, Rose Lavelle was on. We're expecting Carly Lloyd for Rutgers. We just had Sinclair Miramontes, who just signed with the North Carolina Courage for Nebraska. Anyway, I'm dropping names, but it was a lot of fun.
I love to see you so excited, Dean. This is fantastic. It's like you're right in the midst of soccer season again. Also, do you think we weren't born in 2007? I'm concerned. How young do you think we are, Dean?
Younger than me, my man, by a mile, so.
Well, I mean, what do you think your fall could look like? I mean, you got this Big Ten in 10. What else do you kind of see down the pipeline in terms of things you might try and fill the void of soccer with?
Yeah, great question. Tomorrow I have North Carolina FC against Birmingham Legion FC, so I'm back in the booth for North Carolina FC. I love my role there. I love USL Championship. I think it's a great league. Down the road from you guys, Indy 11, Martin Rennie, who used to coach the North Carolina FC. They were then known as the Carolina Rayhawks. They're legit. They could win the USL Championship, by the way. Keep an eye on that team for sure. So I got all those games. I think the North Carolina Courage are done, but when they were in the bubble, I did all of that as well. I just called the USA Softball Junior Olympic Cup, which was awesome because there were probably 7 or 8 players at the U14, U16, U18 level that were playing in the Big Ten. So I wasn't afraid to give a little extra oomph to the players that are going to Michigan or Rutgers or Maryland, wherever they were headed. So that's good. I'm hoping for some more things with softball as well. But, I'm always ready. I love it. This is all I've ever wanted to do since I was a little kid. So the fact that I get to do it and make a living, even during a pandemic, I'm grateful for every opportunity and appreciate every opportunity for sure.
Dean, I think your position as a play-by-play guy, not only as a play-by-play guy, but the way in which you've called games, frequently for Big Ten Network, I think that's very interesting because a lot of people are on site for a lot of these games. Meanwhile, you're used to this remote broadcasting business. You do games from the Chicago studio all the time for Big Ten Network. Has calling games in North Carolina changed for you at all? Has anything changed for you at all in terms of your approach these last few months?
Yeah, no, I mean, even, whether it's in a closet at the Big Ten Network or live, I mean, I can tell you for the North Carolina FC, Connor, they put me on one side and it's not 6 feet. It's literally like 30 feet away. Austin Deleuze, who's Wake Forest's all-time assist leader. He won a national championship in 2007 when he beat the Ohio State Buckeyes down the road, which was also the year that the Big Ten Network launched, which, by the way, the Buckeyes beat Indiana in the final in East Lansing and then went to the championship. So it was so great to be a part of that. I remember it like it was yesterday. So that's the only thing. There's no fans. I'm on one side, Connor and my broadcast partners on the other side. They have a camera guy, again, also 15 feet away. Masks are on. So I do feel really, really safe. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been extra safe in everything I'm doing, including a couple times where I've had to get on a plane and, fly down to South Carolina to do the USA softball thing. But as far as the approach, every game's a Super Bowl in my mind. So that's how I dive in.
That's the best Dean line out there. Every game is the Super Bowl.
What about The Godfather, though? That's a pretty good line.
That's a good line. See, now I'm convinced you have the over because you're just throwing it in wherever you want to. Let's talk MLS is back. How much of that did you get to watch? Did you enjoy having some of that American soccer back and getting to see some of those really good Big Ten players now at the next level?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, of course. I watched every second that I could. If I didn't have a game on, I definitely was watching it. And particularly because, we had Chris Mueller, as I mentioned, on with John Trask. So to see his team, Orlando, those fans have been dying for a good team. And to make that run in Orlando, ironically, even without fans, will continue to inspire that fan base. So that was awesome. Tyler Miller made it to the semifinals, former Northwestern superstar. So that was great. Yeah, anytime there's a Big Ten player doing anything, whether it's MLS or USL, I'm going to watch it. So I was watching intently, and I got to give them credit. I will say the one league that doesn't get enough credit, and I hope you guys will talk about it, the first league to do the bubble was the NWSL. They did it in Utah. They did it with zero COVID occurrences, and it's incredible. And then later on, Major League Lacrosse went to the same place and like, hey, we're the first league to do it. No, you're not. The NWSL did it beforehand, and it was fantastic. I was heartbroken because the Courage got dumped by Portland in the quarterfinals. We weren't expecting that. I thought they were going to win it again, and I was going to have more pregame shows and postgame shows, but good for Houston to win it. So I think that it just shows that it will work. I like what you guys were talking about, moving those Bahama tournaments like Seth. I've had Seth, by the way, on my radio show that I do sometimes in the Raleigh area several times. What a great writer, great guest. I like his idea for basketball. We'll see if that works.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, you're watching the bubbles. You mentioned the NWSL, the MLS and all these professional bubbles. Is this something that if this is still around, obviously for college basketball, but into the spring, if this is still something that we have to live with, do you see something like a soccer season in the Big Ten potentially being a bubble type of sport, or is it just going to be too hard with college athletes to make a bubble?
Yeah, so the feedback I got, like for instance, Matt Lamson came on and said, "Hey, this is neat, we're playing," but he did say it was kind of like, for lack of a better word, a bit of a prison in the sense that you are a little bit handicapped, right? There's only so much you can do. And, keep in mind, he's the backup goalkeeper. So he's missing his family and his kids and everything else. Obviously college guys don't have kids, but my point is, I think it'll be really, really tough to try to pull that off. There's just so much protocol involved. It's relentless, it's thorough, it's detailed. And I think to do that time after time would be really tough.
Well, you do such a thorough job with, so not only soccer, but so many, smaller, non-revenue sports in the Big Ten. We've talked plenty about college soccer here and what that might look like. It sounds like they're going to be fine regardless, but curious if you've had any other conversations with other, coaches, athletes, whoever it may be associated with these other smaller non-revenue sports. I mean, at a certain point, you got to have the conversation that there is a bit of a risk that some things might not be there on the other side of this.
Oh yeah. I mean, you think about the revenue that these football teams are losing. I mean, you're talking north of $50 million per team. That's a lot of money just from fan attendance. So it's devastating, and that'll trickle down to the sports that I love and call and appreciate. So, I mean, all you can do is pray and hope that it works out. But at the end of the day, money drives everything. So we'll have to wait and see. Connor, great question. Another one of those where I don't know the answer, but certainly worried about it and can only hope that they have enough in their coffers to get through this and move forward, because who doesn't love college athletics, whether it doesn't have to be football or basketball, volleyball, field hockey, lacrosse, gymnastics, softball, rowing, tennis. I love it all.
I think one of the great things about it, and you certainly convey this all the time, is that there is literally so much going on all the time. You always have something to do. You're always calling a game, and it's just got to be so different now.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's devastating. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's funny because I thought I was going to be in Tennessee. I was going to drive with my wife, but we had this, then I got the game tomorrow and I'm going to go on Sunday. So I think, my wife also was like, man, when are these games going to come back? She was kind of used to me like popping in and out. That's, 25 years of marriage.
She wants you out of the house, Dean. She's like, this is too much Dean for me.
Of course. Absolutely. It's already probably too much Dean right now. You probably have to push the button. So
no, we can't get enough Dean. Well, what are we talked about some of the projects you want to do, but what are some of your personal goals? I mean, this is a time where we as broadcasters and as media people still have to try and find a way to get better, to keep getting reps, to stay busy. What are some of your goals here in the next couple months when there's no maybe limited amount of live sports?
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to push the podcast. I just got hired to do an ECNL podcast. When U.S. Soccer got rid of their Development Academy program, that meant the ECNL and U.S. Youth Soccer and MLS had to step forward. ECNL is powerful for girls and boys. I love the future of soccer. So they've hired me to do a podcast. It'll debut in September every 2 weeks. So that'll be great. I'm interested in doing the same thing for field hockey and lacrosse and some of these other sports that maybe don't have the same voice that football and basketball has. So I'm definitely going to do that. I will say, I took the COVID-19 literally, and I went for the 19 pounds. And so that's another one of my goals. I've knocked off 9, by the way. I'm proud to say I've knocked off 9. I got 10 more to go, as my head probably doesn't fit on the screen right now. So that's definitely one of my goals. Cause man, when they said COVID-19, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm in.
Congratulations. That's great.
I'm not there yet though, Austin. I got to keep going, my man.
You're still working hard at it. But what's your advice to maybe students, not necessarily directly to Connor and myself, but there's a lot of students out there who were banking on, maybe they got that call up to cover football this year. Maybe they were trying to make their mark in a smaller sport as a freshman or a sophomore. What's your advice to someone who's had their sport ripped away here in the fall, and how can they still utilize their skill sets without sports?
Wow, look at that, Connor. Look at this high-level question coming from Dr. Render over there.
Whoa.
I'm inspired by that question too. Let me put it in this terms. It's interesting because, we're sitting there looking at these seniors that aren't going to play, and they're wondering, do they go to the NFL or whatever? And man, it's deeper than that. You think about the seniors at the high school level that aren't going to get to play, or an 8th grader that's making the transition, even a 1st grader. This pandemic has affected so many levels. And then as it relates to your question, people that thought they were going to call X amount of football games this fall. First of all, my first reaction is it breaks my heart, because it's just another layer of what this pandemic has done. After getting over the heartbreak, then you got to get back to work. So I recommend you turn on the Big Ten Network, get rid of the volume, and call the game. And even if you've got to make up names and say it was Hines to Render because you don't know all the names, you're at least kind of following through on a football call or a soccer call or a volleyball call or a field hockey call. And I mean that sincerely. I used to do it. I would watch games and pretend I knew every player, and I would call it, and I would try to stay fresh. And that was even knowing I had games coming and I was trying to get reps. So you definitely, you got to remain relevant. You have to remain relevant. You need to, keep your social media presence up there as well. Keep talking about the sports, keep doing what you're doing with this incredible podcast for sure, but keep trying to get the reps, even if you're not getting paid for them, even in your own room. Keep putting in the work, and don't be afraid to let people know that you're putting in the work, because they need to remember who you are and why you're good at what you do.
Remain relevant. I just wrote that down. Remain relevant. I think that's the motto for the next few months here. Might be a bit of a challenge.
No, and this show is relevant. I think it's great. Even for me, not to be a sycophant, but just to hear you guys talking about different sports and that type of thing before I joined on, I really enjoyed hearing what you guys have to say, and you guys are staying on top of the sports world, and this is what you love to do. So, look, you two are remaining relevant, and I think anybody that watches this will want to do the same thing.
Dean, where are we going to see you the next few months, besides these Big Ten specials, besides, all these different projects? Obviously, you got your podcast going on. Is that collective together? That's sort of going to be your fall. I know we talked about it a little bit already, but I'm sure, like us, you're just going to be dabbling in a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Look, I find it hard to believe, but if the ACC decides that they're going to play sports, then I'll take whatever games I can get to be ready. BTN takes priority. They always will. I was there from day one, and I'm there as long as they'll have me, and I hope they'll keep having me. I'm grateful for every single person at BTN, whether it's the person doing the audio or the coordinating producer like Sue Marriott. So hopefully, if they play, I'll pick up some games there. And you kind of heard the schedule, and that also includes, making sure I run every day to get rid of that extra 9.
Okay, this might be tampering with the odds makers, but I'm gonna give you the floor. Why, what made Jerry Yeagley so great? And just kind of, I'm going to give you the floor to kind of express your infatuation with the way Jerry Yeagley kind of ran the Indiana soccer program.
All right. I do have a good story there about the Godfather. So if you can see behind me, I've got the jersey. So I was the press officer for the 1994 U.S. World Cup team. Again, before you guys were born, I'm assuming. And I was also the press officer for the 91 women when they won the first World Cup, and then the 92 Olympic team. And on that 92 Olympic team, and I think I may have told this story before, but Steve Snow, who played at Indiana, of course, his brother Ken, one of the all-time greats, rest in peace, died from coronavirus, which I think really makes you realize this is real. So We were playing an Olympic qualifier against Canada in Bloomington at Armstrong Stadium. And that was my first kind of touch of Indiana, right? I was right out of college. And in fact, I graduated in 91, and this qualifier was in 91 or 92. And of course, Steve Snow scored a goal, but Jerry Yeagley invited the team over because we were there. We had Steve Snow on the roster who played at Indiana, and he gave a speech and he talked about having that fire in his belly. And I'm telling you, there was, I mean, full attention. It was like E.F. Hutton talking, full attention. I wanted to play for him right then. His wife was so lovely, and she continues to be so lovely, Marilyn. And it's impossible not to fall in love with the guy. The guy carries him with class. Fast forward, you know, for the last 10 plus years, I MC the United Soccer Coaches Awards Banquet. There's a Jerry Yeagley Award. There's always a table with Jerry Yeagley, Maryland. John Trask, who went to Indiana, is always at that table. Ernie Yarbo, when he comes, he's there. Todd comes every year, even though it's a little bit stiff, to be fair, but they're always there out of respect for people like Jerry Yeagley. So how do you not fall in love with the guy? I mean, he's got time for you all day. He'll sit there even today at practice and have time for you all day. He won 6 national championships. When he left, he was the all-time winningest coach, and he does it all with integrity and class. The guy is brilliant. So I'm never going to stop saying the Godfather. I feel like some of the Indiana guys even get tired of me saying it. In fact, I did a session 2 years ago in Chicago with Jerry Yeagley and Todd Yeagley together. And Don Rawson, former assistant coach from Indiana, said, hey, you might want to limit the number of Godfather. They actually said that to me. So it made me realize, man, maybe I'm over the top. But you know what? I'm me. You know, I love the guy, and he's the Godfather. So he deserves it, and he'll forever be the Godfather. I mean, he's won every award there is to win, and he's deserved every award there is to win. How about that? That was pretty good. Tell you why I say the Godfather?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Todd has been fantastic. I think Connor and I would only have great things to say about Todd as well. And he came on our podcast a couple weeks ago. Plug that. Was fantastic. He and Erwin were on the same episode. They were both great. I want to give you this chance here, Dean, since it's not going to happen or may not happen until the spring. So you don't really have to worry about broadcasting a game with these teams. What was the Big Ten soccer landscape going to look like? Who was going to be the favorite? What did you know about some of these teams? And who would you have thought might be the team that came away with the Big Ten?
Yeah, great question. And I feel like I'm in touch with that, right? Because I just told you we did this Big Ten in 10. And when we started it, we thought, with the men anyway, that they were still going to play. So my first question was, what were your expectations? So they all answered it. So with that, Indiana, no matter that they lost all those superstars, including Morris, who's playing for Columbus Crew, Jack Mayer, who left early, but you got a new mayor coming in there. Indiana just reloaded. Todd was super fired up, so they were going to be good. You know, Maryland's always going to be good. I will say Shaka Daly, what he's doing at Michigan is legit, and they have all those guys coming back. Zaki's coming back. Umar Farouk Osman's coming back. Ibarra's coming back. Reagan's coming back. Finnerty's coming back in goal, so they were going to be good. Giuseppe Baroni, who sat out all last year from Michigan State, he was coming back. Wisconsin, a team that really kind of relied on defense, they have a couple big transfers coming in. They have a couple internationals coming in, so I felt like he was going to be really confident. Even Northwestern, Tim Lenahan, you got to remember, as they ended their season last year, they were legit. They're going to be really good. Jim McKeldry's a breath of fresh air. He's a New Jersey guy. He's getting New Jersey players to play at Rutgers. Jeff Cook at Penn State. I mean, I just said all 9 teams. Obviously, I think, Indiana, Maryland, and Michigan were going to be the favorites, but, all the other ones have made adjustments. And even Mays, who I do want to go back to the fact that you had Todd Yeagley on, because I do want to point out when we had the Godfather and Todd on, I did ask the Godfather about what – we can't forget that Todd was an incredible player. And I don't want you guys to forget that he was an incredible player. In fact, I want to remind you that this guy, when you look at the record books, and he never talks about it, he's the most humble guy, just like his dad. Todd Yeagley was one of the greatest players in college. As great as the Godfather was coaching, Todd was amazing. His vision, the way he ran it, and to have the Godfather talk about his son as a player, then also as a coach, it's good stuff, guys. So when that comes out, you'll like that part. And I didn't mean to say that in a lecture way, but do remember that this guy was a really big time player, and weave that in as you're talking about it. Because he and Mays, you got to remember, they had two players. One won the MAC, one won the Herman before they became the MAC Herman, and they both went to the same university. Are you kidding me? That's pretty legit.
It does feel like the Big Ten is deeper than even when we got here as freshmen and sophomores. So just 2 or 3 years ago, it feels like the Penn States, the Northwesterns, the Wisconsins, Big Ten soccer is getting a little bit deeper, and it feels like some of those teams are ready to almost make that next step into the Maryland, Indiana, Michigan territory.
That's so well said. And kind of doing this Big Ten and 10, we kind of went down memory lane, and Tim Lenahan, who's I think one of the most underrated coaches out there, took over a Northwestern team that never won a Big Ten game. And then I think it was 2004, they went into Bloomington. Indiana had won 50 straight Big Ten games. Are you kidding me? 50 straight. So it was Indiana and really nobody else. After Northwestern won that game, we've now seen every team in the Big Ten except Rutgers win a Big Ten championship. That's amazing when you think about how good Indiana and Maryland is. Wisconsin has slipped in there. We told you about the Buckeyes going all the way to the national championship in 2007. Tim Lenahan, Northwestern, won the double, did 2 Elite Eights. And of course, Wisconsin was just 1 game away from making the College Cup a couple years ago after they beat Indiana on penalty kicks in the Big Ten championship. So yeah, I mean, the parity is there, but to your point, Austin, I don't think it just happened a couple years ago. It's been going on for 10 plus years now. And now every year, I think Todd and even Sasha would say anybody could win the league.
Which I think really speaks to the depth of college soccer now and what we're seeing in the Big Ten. It's truly great. And we see a lot of different teams pop up in the national landscape every year. I want to ask you before we let you go, this is probably another one of those questions where you're going to tell us that you don't really know the answer, but I still want to hear your thoughts on it. Connor and I were talking about this before we got on. It's similar now. The fall athletes are going to be in a similar position to the spring athletes, where I would imagine they will get an extra year of eligibility if they want it. What do you expect? I mean, some of these kids are probably ready to go. Maybe what do you think that will be received with, and will most of these guys take that extra year and come back in the soccer landscape?
Yeah, soccer specifically, that's a tough one, right? Because for whatever reason, the pro leagues, and I don't know why, because every roster, even in the MLS back, was loaded with college superstars, which is part of the reason why I was tuning in, because I'm one of those weirdos that would rather watch college soccer than even the Premier League, because I'm fully invested. But because of that, some of them will have strong dialogue. And that's the great thing about all these coaches we just rattled off. So if there's a player at Indiana that Todd Yeagley feels is ready to be a pro, Todd will prop him up to be a pro. So the dialogue between the player and the coach will be even heartier, I think. And if they're ready based on even 1 more year without playing college games, but just growth and working out and practicing and taking all the right steps and treating their body right, yeah, some of those guys are going to need to go pro. And then some of them that weren't quite ready will come back, and who knows, they could have an Andrew Gutman type breakout year that'll elevate him to the next level and sign with Celtic kind of out of the blue. So hopefully we'll have some of those kind of stories as well. So there, I did answer your question.
There we go. Yep. Well, I was going to say, we could even see, like you mentioned there, we could see some guys literally come to college and not play a single game and then leave. I mean, that's certainly feasible, right?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Because some of these guys are one and doners anyway. We saw Mason Toy, do 1 year and go. We saw Aiden Morris do 1 year and go. So it's happening a lot more. I like the fact that these kids are still giving college at least a couple years before they take that next step, or guys that go the whole way, like Chase Gasper, who started at UCLA, finished at Maryland. He's now a starter, right? I mean, he essentially was around 5 years because of the extra year, and he's now a starter. Donovan Pines for Maryland is a good case. Jack Mayer went 3 years. You know, I'd love to see him come back for the extra year, but 3 hardy years at Indiana, and now he's a pro, second pick, I think, in the MLS draft by Nashville, and hopefully he'll continue to see more playing time. So yeah, to answer your question, some of these guys we will never see wear an Indiana uniform officially in a regular game. And, you know, that's part of what we're doing. Unprecedented times. You kind of gotta roll with it in every sense of the way. And, you know, let's just hope that we can get through this and everybody can get safe, and this will be in the rearview mirror, you know, sooner as opposed to later.
Absolutely. Let's hope we get a spring season of some sort that we get to see. Not only we get to see Dean, but we get to see him back with the headset on. We look forward to that. But Dean, thanks again for joining us. We always appreciate talking to you, and best of luck to you with the Big 10 and 10 and all that stuff. Can't wait to see it come out.
Did we get a count on, or were we double digits on the Godfather?
We might need one of those guys on Twitter to go back, but I think you got it. I think you hit their overs. So I think you nailed it.
All right.
Thanks Dean. Take care. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Austin, Connor, my pleasure. Take care.
Thanks, Dean.
As Dean Linke of the Big Ten Network joining us here with the Unpaid Interns podcast. Just a blast always to have Dean on, Connor. We always learn something new, always so inspirational. I love what he said. Remain relevant, treat every game like the Super Bowl. If you need a little pick-me-up and you know Dean, all you got to do is dial him up, because that guy is just filled with positive vibes, and he will lift you up and get you where you need to go.
I think we should just make the Unpaid Interns a 3-man thing and just have 3 times a week. I mean, I think that would.
Dean could be a new co-host with us, and we'll bring on some of those Big 10 and 10 guys. But what a great episode. Dean was on earlier. I don't remember the episode, but we talked a little bit more about the fall to spring season. We talked more about the Jerry Yeagley documentary that Big Ten put out, Worth the Wait. So you can go check out that previous episode with Dean and then listen to this one again and see his thoughts. But that man loves Jerry Yeagley. He loves Big Ten soccer, and man, do we love having him on the show. We have an exciting lineup of guests next week, but we're still kind of tentatively waiting on some schedules, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I will say that we should have some fun next week with our guests Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thanks for bearing with us for an afternoon episode today. If you are watching or listening live, we may not be at the normal times again next week as well due to NFL training camp, but we're hopeful still to get some really fun guests on. School is just around the corner, Hines. We're about about 10 days away from getting school started. So there is a chance that come August 24th, we may be changing the time of the show. So keep an eye on our social media pages. Unfortunately, we are still students and we do still have to attend class. So we will keep you posted on what time our show will move to starting on the 21st or the 24th. But until then, you can keep catching us on the IU Sports Media YouTube page or wherever you get your podcasts. All 37 of our previous episodes up there that you can watch or listen to at your leisure. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Dean Linke and Connor Hines. I'm Austin Render. That'll wrap things up here for our Friday episode. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.